Welcome to the Grace Period, where we get real about attorney mental health and well-being and pull back the veil on the high-stakes world of big law. I'm your host, Emily Logan Stedman, a commercial litigator, partner, and someone who believes there's always room for a little more grace, even in this high-stakes profession. On the Grace Period, I share real stories from my own journey in big law and invite you behind the scenes, beyond the billable hour, to talk about what it means to stay human in a demanding field. Whether you're a lawyer, a legal professional, or someone trying to find your footing, this space is for you. Let's pull back the curtain, start the conversation, and find our grace period together. Disclaimer, the views and opinions shared on this podcast are mine alone and do not necessarily reflect those of my firm or any organization. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not legal advice, and listening does not create an attorney-client relationship. Welcome to episode 41 of the Grace Period. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on something every litigator faces, and honestly, every lawyer in a deadline-driven practice faces: the true meaning of deadlines and all the types of deadlines. Here's something I wish I'd known on day one in big law. That final court deadline on your calendar, that's really just the beginning. Every court deadline has a backstory, a series of internal and external dates that keep the case, the team, and the client on track. Today, let's walk through how I break it down, working backwards from the finish line. First and foremost, there's the court's deadline. This is the date stamped on the scheduling order set by the judge. Miss it and you risk sanctions, lost arguments, or a very unhappy client. This is non-negotiable. But before anything goes to court, it needs to go to the client. That's your next deadline, the client deadline. The client needs time to review, weigh in, approve, and sometimes spot business or fact issues that the legal team might miss. Giving the client space to do that is crucial, and it can't be done last minute. It also needs to be sufficiently ahead of the court's deadline so you can incorporate any client feedback and potentially give the client a second look. Then, before you even get something to the client, there's what I call the internal deadline. This is usually the date your partner, senior associate, or senior counsel wants the first draft. It's often set days or even weeks before the court deadline or before the client deadline. Why? Because it gives the team time for review, edits, and strategic adjustments without a last-minute scramble. Then there's the piece that's often overlooked, especially by newer associates: your own deadline. I recommend setting a personal deadline a day or two before the internal one. This gives you time to finish the draft, let it sit, review it with fresh eyes, maybe even more than once, and make sure it's as polished as possible before it goes up the chain. You might be asking, why all these layers? Why not just focus on the internal deadline, the one in my inbox or on my to-do list? This is the answer. Every deadline is part of a chain. Missing your own deadline means you lose the chance to polish your work. Pushing against or missing the internal deadline creates a domino effect, compressing review time, stressing the team, delaying or rushing client review and feedback, and ultimately risking the quality of the final product. Over time, thinking big picture, understanding how your work fits into the larger timeline becomes a crucial skill. It's not just about completing tasks. It's about anticipating needs and supporting the whole team and the client to get across the finish line smoothly. And that's the truth. It takes time to figure this out. For me, after 9 years in practice, it's basically now automatic. Formal docketing using my firm's deadline app and procedure is up to my legal assistant. But I also always add a second layer for myself just to cover all the bases. I also put the client and internal deadlines on my calendar and my teammates' calendars so everyone knows what to expect. My personal deadline is also on my calendar. But Emily, what do I do if emergencies pop up, personal or professional, that impede my ability to meet a deadline? Or what if I simply need more time? Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate early and often. Limit surprises. With the right cadence of internal and external deadlines, you can build in room for the unexpected. But you should never leave the person tied to the next deadline in a lurch or out of touch. Tell them early and honestly. That's the only way to keep the ball rolling smoothly and to protect the relationships you're building with your teammates. In litigation, deadlines are often non-negotiable, but with the right mindset and systems, you can make them work for you and for everyone counting on you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Grace Period. I hope today's discussion and reflections brought you a little clarity and comfort, or a new way to think about deadlines, all the deadlines. Remember, you don't have to choose between your well-being and your ambition. By setting boundaries and building supportive habits and giving yourself permission to pause, you can thrive in law and big law and in life. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. That is the path to our grace period. Disclaimer: the views expressed here are solely my own and do not represent the official policy or position of my firm or any organization. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, not professional or legal advice, and does not create an attorney-client relationship.